Wait, kick us out.
What's up, guys? Four Corners. What's in the game? Crossover episode. This is what it is. We're getting off to a hot start. I'm going to bring in Peter, Bucket since '88. What's up?
What's up, Ray? Back with another episode of the Cunning Linguists of Nuggets podcast, right?
That's literally just a joke for me. But if you know who Cunning Linguists are, I really appreciate you. And leave a comment. Leave a comment that you are one of my favorite hip hop fans, I guess. But yeah, how you been?
Good. Been busy. It's a bittersweet episode for me today because it's going to be my last episode from the great state of Louisiana. The Louisiana Purchase is one of the most important moments in U.S. history. So I forgot to research the date and stuff, but that's standard for this podcast. Not a lot of research, mostly just talking from the dome. So,
I mean, I guess the Louisiana Purchase might be the greatest GM move in American history.
Oh, definitely, it's got to be up there. I mean, all that land and all the great.
Maybe getting Alaska.
I mean, it was a good economical move. Yeah,
strategically. But we've got some guests today.
Yeah, bittersweet because I'm very excited who's joining us today. First is a man who's been on once before. He is from the mean streets of Littleton, Colorado. It is Will Jones. Welcome back, Will. Good to have you.
Yes, Littleton. It is the mean streets. I'm glad you recognized that about Littleton.
Oh yeah. So Will, I've been. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, Will is one of the hosts of the What's in the Game podcast, which I really enjoy listening to. And Will, you've been asked enough recently how you felt about the Nuggets season. So instead of getting depressed about that, I'm going to go in a completely different direction for your first question. What is the best movie you've seen in 2024? It doesn't have to be a movie that came out this year, just the best movie or show, I guess, because I know you like movies.
Oh, man. Well, I recently rewatched a gem for people out there. You got to see Lady Vengeance, part of the Vengeance trilogy. It's Park Chan-wook. It's like a very quirky movie. It's actually really hard to find, so that might be a really bad suggestion. But I did go to Kinds of Kindness, which is in theaters right now, and it's very weird, and it's long, but it's good. Yeah, those are two for people to check out.
Great. Yeah, don't really know much of what you said, but I'll definitely check it out. Sounds good. And next we have somebody who I'm very excited to have on the show today. It is Will's co-host. But here's what's really important to know. Okay, we've had a lot of important people on the show, Ray. We've had doctors on this show. We've had lawyers on this show. But I don't really have the same amount of reverence for people in society, because we've also had basketball coaches on this show, and we've had members of the Serbian media on the show. But all of that pales in comparison to the 2023-24 Nuggets Twitter Rookie of the Year and Will's co-host on the What's in the Game podcast, Grace Jean. Grace, welcome to Four Corners. How are you?
I'm good. I had no idea where that sentence was going to end. I actually was really, really happy when I won the Rookie of the Year in the Twitter poll.
I mean, hey, I've never won anything like that. I mean, Miroslav did call me the #1 Devin Booker hater, which was pretty cool. I mean, I'm not going to disclose how much I paid. Yeah, I'm not going to disclose how much I paid Miroslav to say that, but that would just stay between us. But Grace, my first question for you is just, what has the last month been like? I mean, you've been everywhere. You've been on Bleacher Report show. You've been on Locked on Nuggets. You've been with Blackburn. Killing it with Will. Just killing the game right now. You're like the hottest mixtape rapper. For the kids, you're like Drake in 2009. For my generation, you're like Eminem in 1999.
A lot of references for 30-year-olds right now.
I know, right? And I'm not 30 yet, so. What has it been like? Well, let me see. What day is today? July 3rd. What was going on June 3rd? The finals had started. The last month has actually been a lot busier than I expected, is the answer, because I didn't expect the first month of the off season to fly by the way that it has. And that is in part because of the these guest appearances, and I'm super grateful to have gotten those invitations. I don't know, it's been fun. Like, I really love talking about the Nuggets. I love talking about basketball. I love talking about the NBA as a whole. And I love being able to do that with Will on the podcast, obviously. But just the fact that, like, all of these people that I've been interacting with on Twitter want me to, like, come on their shows to do the same thing and just, like, keep, bouncing more ideas off of them. It's just been really, like, fun. And also, like, alleviating for my fiance, who is like, can you find somebody else to talk about this stuff with? Because the volume of, like, if you guys see, like, the volume of my tweets and, like, the different angles that I'm always taking on, like, random stuff, you could probably imagine why he's like, you can't talk to me about literally all of it. Like, I tweeted something yesterday about how I didn't think it was that crazy for the Wizards to want 2 first-round picks for Kyle Kuzma. And I think it was a Nuggets fan who commented and said, like, we don't even have 2 first-round picks, blah, blah, blah. And I had to just say, like, oh, this was not at all for the Nuggets. I was just, like, opining on this general thing.
Random Wizards
things. Random Wizards thing that I saw, and I had a thought, and I wanted to, like, get it out there. So anytime somebody gives me the opportunity to talk, I will probably take it.
Yeah, you pay attention to the whole league, and we appreciate that. But I like what you said, because that brings me to my next point, Ray. Before we get into basketball talk today, I just want to bring you back for a second. I want to reminisce real quick, because it was about 3 years ago, maybe a little longer. You reached out to me and you said, hey, you want to start a podcast? And I was like, what are we going to talk about? And you said, we can talk about the Nuggets. And I was like, that's it? And you're like, yeah, well, we can talk about other stuff too. I mean, it's our show. We can do whatever we want. I was like, great, I'm in. And, it's been a lot of fun. And, this is not the end. It's just the ending of one chapter. But the reason I wanted to bring that up is I just think it's cool. Like, for all the bad things going on in the world and the people, problems people have with technology and society and social media, I mean, it's like, this is like a great thing, like Ray, you and I met through the internet. We've met in person, but, like, I've never met Willa Grace, in person yet. And I'm pretty sure, like, just us becoming friends and, talking Nuggets has been fun. And I think Will, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was like a similar thing with you and Grace. You just kind of liked her takes and then wanted to talk basketball. So I'm just saying, I think it's great that we can all get together and just do what we love, talk basketball.
Yeah, I needed Grace to carry me. I was like, I need a draft a Jokic type player for my team. But yeah, no, it's been awesome. Like, talking to you guys, and I hadn't even thought about really podcasting until you guys even, like, invited me on to your show, and then I got to do Miroslav, and then Grace and I were just kind of joking about it, and then it ended up actually happening. And I just feel like, yeah, Grace just talked about how she always has ideas and something to say, and, like, ideas are just popping out of her brain nonstop. So it's cool that she has a format now to channel that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and COVID sucked, but hey, we got Zoom out of it, right?
Yeah, we're living.
I didn't hate COVID.
Oh my God! No, look, we don't have time to go down this rabbit hole. Jesus Christ!
I'm not gonna lie, I'm an introvert. I like people,
yeah,
but I just spent a lot of time in parks and outdoors, and in walking dogs.
But Will, that's a very good skill to have. You said Grace carries you. Knowing your role, it can get you paid a lot of money. I mean, Alex Caruso, look, he's going to be in the league a long time. I mean, DeMarcus Cousins, he's not in the league anymore.
Yeah, and KCP is 2 championships. Oh, I guess I shouldn't have brought him up.
Is that where we're going to start?
Wherever.
Yeah, I mean, there's been not a lot of activity in the Nuggets offseason. There's only been 3 things for sure. So we've got KCP left, he signed with the Magic. Reggie was traded to the Hornets for 3 first-round picks, and everybody's favorite DJ, go DJ, he was brought back to the Nuggets on a veteran minimum. Ray, your reaction to the current Nuggets offseason so far?
Okay, well, as you know, unlike Grace, I have never been the Nuggets Twitter Rookie of the Year. I am more the Casper the Friendly Ghost of Nuggets Twitter. I show up, I say some things, and then I leave, mostly.
True.
Kind of like COVID, I'm really not that mad right now. I'm actually a little upset. And it's kind of at you.
Me?
Not us in this podcast, but whoever's listening to this. I'm mad at us as a community. I'm a little disappointed.
Yes, Nuggets Twitter is melting down.
What happened to Built Not Bought? What happened to We Don't Skip Steps? All that shit went out the window when we won a championship, and then for the first time, we did not. And I feel like now we're just all losing our minds. And I love it. This offseason has made me feel like maybe sports fans are just kind of the same everywhere. And that's kind of my takeaway. At least that's where I would start.
Well, you have to remember there's been a lot of bandwagon Nuggets fans, Grace, since the Nuggets won a championship. So not everybody knows about the We Don't Skip Steps, right?
Yeah,
I know about that for sure because it's like reiterated a million times over in every on the Nuggets the team Twitter account, on every Nuggets podcast. It's part of the identity of the fandom.
Not anymore.
Yeah, well, there was a sentiment after we won a championship that we thought we'd be a destination and it'd be attracting free agents and getting all this talent coming in. And I don't know if that was right to expect that, or if it's just, it's kind of amazing
maybe
how
good-ish person might want to come. I don't think.
Wait. Will, I think that's a great point. Hold on for a sec. Can any of you guys picture Jokic picking up the phone and being like, "Hey, you want to come play with me? You come to Denver." I can't. I don't see it. He's not. He doesn't seem like a recruiter at all.
I could picture his agents doing that.
Okay.
I just think he's so nonchalant. Like they bring up anybody, and he's like, "Yes, that sounds fun." You know?
But apparently not, right? Yeah. Apparently he's advocated for people to not be Nuggets at times.
I think there are some pretty clear examples of players who, we can make up with a top 5. I'm thinking like Jordan Poole. I don't want to razz on a bunch of players, but I'm sure there are guys.
I was sorry to interrupt you. I was talking to Grace because I guess Harrison Wind reported the other day that Jokic had said no to some people down the line, and making some roster decisions.
He said that it wasn't the first time, apparently, that he had, chimed in some fashion and had also advocated against.
But one of the guys I was bringing up was if he vetoed, that hypothetical James Harden for Jamal Murray trade that was, going around that 1 year.
I would have hated that. I would have ruined everything.
Yeah.
Confident he would. Yeah. But being that I'm not on Twitter as much, I think. Will, how about you? What is your temperature reading in Fahrenheit, I guess, right now on how hot or cold you are on the Nuggets?
Oh, for me personally, I feel I'm waiting to see who the backup point guard is, but regardless, I'm definitely a little lower, but I'm not reacting like the sky's falling. I still think we have a chance to make a good playoff run. And we saw in the playoffs that so much of it was kind of matchup based. It's not all about talent and collecting stars, even though I would love to see an all-star with Jokic at some point. And I do think Jamal is like can play at an all-star level, and so can like AG and MPJ. It's just the West so competitive; it's hard to get there. But I still believe in the Nuggets. You have Jokic, Jamal Murray. It's just if Jamal can play like he did, then we're gonna feel a lot better. So I guess in the back of my mind, I'm being optimistic about Jamal playing better next season and taking it really seriously and coming back and being really conditioned and like showing all the haters wrong, because he's gonna have a chip on his shoulder. I'd be surprised if he didn't.
Here's the thing. I want to believe that.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying last offseason. So I think he can be better. I mean, he can't be much worse. So
Yeah.
what I will say,
The only way to go is up.
yeah, I mean, is he going to play fewer games? I doubt it. Is he going to have a worse playoffs? I doubt it. You know, I think there's a lot of room to grow and a lot of evidence at this point that would project him.
Why don't we get into the speculation? Okay, it's not official, but all signs are pointing to Russell Westbrook ending up a Denver Nugget as the backup point guard. Shams Charania put out a tweet a few days ago saying that the Clippers were looking to move on from Westbrook and that there was mutual interest between him and the Nuggets. Obviously, nothing is official yet, but I just listened to Wind and Mares, and they were basically saying how just because something's not official doesn't mean that's like not what the parties are working on. So, yes, obviously it's still possible that Westbrook doesn't end up in Denver, but that is what it sounds like is the plan. So if that is in fact the plan, I personally have come around on it. I think the bench just needs some fresh juice. You know, it needs like some energy, and Russell always brings that energy. And yeah, he's, you know, can make dumb plays and rough turnovers and not a great shooter, but I think playing at altitude will really help. And especially if he's got Vlatko back, you know, maybe stagger Mike so you get some shooting, Strother, and the other rumored player the Nuggets might be getting, Dario Saric. If you can play 5 out with Westbrook, I think that could be a competent unit. And the last 2 years, that's what's killed the Nuggets is the bench. So if the bench can just not be terrible, that's a huge step forward. What do you think, Ray?
Again, they can't get worse.
Right. So what do they have to lose?
Yes. I mean, I think that's very fair. I'm not the highest person on Dario Saric as an ad for Denver. I think they have just the idea of adding another small ball 5 option confuses me a little bit, just in the sense that between Vlatko, Duran, and maybe Zeke, you have a number of small ball options who are similar but slightly different. And I would really like to see Denver bring in an actual center, someone who I would feel good about if Denver was playing a team who was also playing actual centers. And I think that would really improve their type coverage, I guess, to make a Pokemon reference. You know, I think there's, hey, shout out to Rashad. I just feel like they can cover a better variety of matchups in that context. But Grace, how about you? How high are you on Russ and Dario as a potential duo?
Yeah, the dynamic duo, Russell Westbrook and Dario Saric. I will say that my temperature on the offseason was pretty like steady up until it was draft day 2. It was the day that we recorded our not our last episode, but the one right before. And we got the news about Reggie and Jamal's extension, like in succession. Right? And I was really just confused by the move. It wasn't really, you know, one of the reasons that I was so steady on the offseason was I was like, I really, really want them to keep KCP, but if they don't, here are some of the options. Like I had watched a lot of like Blackburn in particular had put together a lot of different like trade scenarios that involved aggregating salaries and all of that. NBA Chicken as well. Just lots of people were trying to come up with ideas. Like what do we do if KCP leaves? Even if he doesn't, like what are our options, especially in this new CBA environment? The Reggie move was not figured into any of those scenarios. And so it like just didn't occur to me that none of the like, I don't know, 50 or so things that we had talked about on Nuggets Twitter as options for the team wouldn't come to fruition because they decided to do a salary dump with Reggie. And so that like really threw me off kilter, I will say, for me personally. And that's just like, I really like to have a plan. I like to know what the heck is going on. So that happened. And then obviously free agency starts. We find out KCP is going to my Orlando Magic. And it just kind of made me more uneasy, even though it was a move that I was like, he's probably leaving anyway. They had been like telegraphing that that'd be the case for basically all of June, right? But that coupled with, okay, none of the other plans that I saw as the plan B are going to happen. So now what the heck is going on? And it's been, several days into free agency. We don't have an answer on Westbrook yet. I like Pete and Will have come around to the idea. I think that he provides some spark and just specific things that we've been wanting from a bench player, particularly this last year: ball handling, rim pressure, stuff like that. And obviously, he's not a perfect player. If he were, then he'd probably be getting more than a minimum right now. That's all of the options that we considered for that backup point guard spot have some deficiency there. But I think it's like, okay, not a bad option if we can get around all of the baggage, right? But again, we still don't have clarity on that situation yet, and what's going to happen with that last, presumably the last roster spot, and it's probably going to be Dario Saric as far as like who they're pursuing. But it does get like my wheels turning a lot. Like, okay, we still don't have answers, so of course my imagination is going to run wild with like, what if they don't get Westbrook? What if they don't get Sarge? Like, what was the plan here? Especially because none of the other options that I had considered prior as the plan B, C, whatever, had are even possible now. So it does become like, okay, I see like a window closing right now and no clarity. So I think that's what's making me most anxious. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's what's contributing the most to the anxiety, at least with like very online Nuggets Twitter, because I stay up till really late, really waiting for news. And a lot of my like following page is just people like with different variations of like memes asking Calvin to do something because they want an answer, and we have not gotten one yet.
That's fair.
So that's where I'm at, where I'm like, I just want some certainty. And the one thing that has been really great about this offseason, like just love the move, is we got I think that we got the top on what was the everyone's lists for the draft when we drafted Duran, and he's been like the bright spot of the entire offseason so far. But then you also have like the flip side of that, where you go to his introductory press conference and you find out that Julian was the only one who, by that point anyway, 4 days after he gets drafted, has he's the only member of the team who had contacted him. And then you're like, okay, well, everyone's vibes are off now, and I'm just upset. So I can empathize with everyone who is like super duper freaking out, because like I am too, a little bit.
I think that's fair. I mean, there are some things that do bother me about second round picks aren't consequential in a way that I think it's the end of the world. However, just the nature of signing Reggie Jackson to that contract and then having to give up 3 first-round picks.
Second round picks.
Second round picks. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. It just feels so out of balance with. I mean, I know Reggie is not good. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that.
There are lots of NBA players that are not good.
Exactly, and did you really need to do that, especially in a context where no one else has been signed yet? That does perplex me. You could have kept him. If that's what it is, I would understand. At least compared to signing no one. So there's that. The point about not kind of getting in touch with Duran, that kind of transitions into something else I wanted to talk about, and part of my thumbnail choice for today, and part of some of the subject matter is that both I turned 30 this year, and Jokic turns 30 this season, and the players are maturing. So, and Will, I kind of was curious about your thoughts on this. How do you perceive the transition for, in a context where Denver can't always have as many extracurricular veterans as they want going forward? How do you perceive that transition of responsibility for the guys who are on the roster and in the core, from being a young player to being quote unquote a veteran, and taking on those responsibilities, and maybe even what are some of the consequences of them aging, basically?
Yeah, this strategy with Calvin Booth and the young guys coming in to contribute on these cheap contracts, because we don't have space to be signing a ton of dudes, apparently, is something that we haven't seen succeed yet, but they feel they're like ahead of the curve. They feel like this plan is like cutting edge and is going to work out. And I think that's part of why Nuggets fans are so frustrated with Calvin Booth right now, is because we're used to seeing title teams be, adding stars or adding vets and just getting better and better. And that's just not the nature of the NBA. I mean, this really quick, like this free agency isn't like old free agency where it's just stars moving around. A lot of these are role player people going to new teams. And of course, the main headliners on each contender are there, and they're just adding the pieces. And I think we've seen how the big three is kind of dead, and you need those 3-and-D wings around your main stars. And we're seeing teams do stuff like that and getting better. So it's not like the Nuggets are completely set right now with this strategy. But I wasn't expecting like Christian Brown, for example, to be starting right now. Like I thought Christian Brown and P. Watt still had time to develop a little bit. Yeah, Jokic is going to be 30, but I'm almost 33, and I don't feel super old. So I'm like Jokic is going to be fine. Like he's 30 right now, but he's still got some time.
Same miles on you that he does, though.
How do you know?
She call you lazy.
You're not an NBA player. Like literally, the miles.
I work
traveled.
out every night.
Not
like
even
Jokic.
Talking about the minutes.
No, yeah, NBA players, but I don't know. I just believe in Jokic. He's very durable. It's not like he's had all these injuries, knock on wood. But I think Calvin Booth, he's like very committed to this plan, and he's pushing it ahead right now. So I don't really know necessarily how it's going to go. I'm optimistic about Christian Brown. Obviously, losing KCP is not ideal, but I don't know if the older guys are going to be frustrated that the younger guys are kind of not on the same page when you're going through a really intense title run, or if they're going to be fine with it and be mentoring these guys and they're going to get on the same page really quickly because we have a great coaching staff. Like, I don't know. This is just kind of unseen territory. We've seen it fail with other teams like the Warriors. So I just kind of think I'm more patient to see how it plays out this season. And if it doesn't, then I might be calling for some upgrades or more drastic trades. But right now I'm willing to see how these guys are.
I don't want to say I'm excited, because I know everyone's not excited, but I'm excited. I'm not gonna lie.
Right?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Valid.
That's cool. I like that.
I think, okay, hot take, Peter, I don't know if you agree with me on this. I think the starters are going to be better. I think they'll be better with Christian Brown than they would have been with KCP, and better than they were this past season. I think they'll be bigger. I think they'll be physical. I think they'll be athletic in a way that they weren't before.
I think it's a fascinating discussion, because as good as KCP is, his numbers don't wow you, but he was perfect for the role, right? I mean, that trade when we got him went so under the radar. But I was telling you before, I was like, who do you want? I was like, I want KCP or Brogdon. Those are like my two guys.
Mm-hmm.
KCP was the right choice. You know, I was like, okay, we don't quite have enough ball handling, but then when we got Bruce Brown, it was like the perfect combination of enough defense, shooting, and ball handling. So, you know, I like Christian. He just needs to get a little more confident on offense. But I agree that there's not really a whole lot of drop off on defense, and that there is probably a little bit more athleticism. So as long as it doesn't, you know, completely neuter the offense, I think they'll still be okay. Like, I mean, Jokic won 47 games with Facu and Rivers. Like, the guy figures it out. So I'm excited for him to get roll with more minutes, and I totally understand like why they did it, but I also understand the fans that are mad, because it's like, why would you let this happen when you have proof of concept, right? It's not like the Nuggets have been close and didn't get over the hump. They won the chip 2 years ago. So everybody's like, oh, you can't keep losing these players, and it makes us look bad. But, you know, the timing of the CBA is just not great. So I guess it's like an easy excuse for him. But, you know, yeah, I wanted to talk about Jokic today, because he is going to be turning 30 in February, and I just don't want us to take him for granted, you know. And I hope, you know, it's like I'm kind of where with Will's at. It's like, I'm willing to go along with this plan for this year, but if it doesn't work very well, I really hope that they pivot and like try to go all in again, because when you have a superstar, you owe it to that guy. And I don't know how Jokic's game is going to age. I really don't. A lot of people say like, oh, well, he already doesn't jump, like it'll age great. But you can't just do like the on-court miles. I think the mental miles add up too. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think we saw that this year. We definitely saw it, you know, the year that Murray was hurt. So, and now he's going to go have to play the Olympics. So it's like, I think the Nuggets, it would be in their best interest to beef up their bench as much as they can, just to save the starters. And then, you know, if they don't finish with the first or second seed, I can live with that as long as we get to the playoffs fresher.
That would be nice.
I have a question, actually, because I don't know the answer. When is the last time that Jokic got a full off season?
What do you mean by that? Like not in the playoffs? I know,
like, okay, so post bubble, it was weird because of COVID, and then the schedule got pushed, and then the next.
I think it was 2019.
Okay, so that's when it was. That was 5 years ago.
And reference. He skipped. I want to say he skipped the year that they got swept by the Suns in the second round. I think he skipped that year because he was just so dead tired.
Yeah, he didn't play.
Because Serbia was mad at him.
20, was that 21? Yeah.
22?
21, because the 22 was the Warriors.
That's right. Yep, 21.
And 22, that following summer, he was in Eurobasket, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they lost to Italy.
Okay.
So.
Which they apparently always do. I don't know.
I know roster additions are important, and this is another thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Considering Jokic's age and also just the burden that he carries, I know we would love to go out and add a Paul George or something, but another thing I would really like to see is just to see the team play a little bit differently. Like whoever is on the team, that's great. I'm sure they'll be very good. 50 to 60 wins, somewhere in that range. But I don't want to see Jokic be MVP, if that makes sense. I don't want to see him in the conversation. Like if he's putting up 30 points and 22 rebounds and 11 assists a night, like I don't think that's a good sign for really the offense. And for too long, I feel like I've been watching a team. When I became a Nuggets fan, I was like 2009-ish. And honestly, even the period after that was it was fun for me because they played in a way that was fun and free, and like they ran the floor and everybody was involved, everyone contributed. I feel like over time they've become a team that's a lot more like some of the teams I don't like in the sense that they hand the ball to their best player and then people just
Mm-hmm.
Can I comment on that for just a little bit? So part of like outside, like basically outsider perspective, because I don't have as much experience watching the past Nuggets teams, right? I saw like the title team and I saw them this past season, right? It seems to me that over the last, I don't know, 4 years or so, the team has become less and less offensively oriented with the people that they're putting around Jokic, because they're going more defensively oriented, right?
Yes.
Like you saw it starting with the draft before the title year. Got Christian Brown, they got Peyton Watson. He didn't play as much that first year, but they had brought in KCP at the trade deadline. They brought in Bruce Brown, who he plays offense well off of Jokic, but he's not like an offensive, player, right?
He was terrible this year.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been trying to think about in, when I was trying to like tailor like different scenarios for what the Nuggets could do this offseason is find more of that balance, because you look at teams like the Pacers, who, Lord help them with their shot selection, but everyone on that team feels really comfortable with their offensive skills. And they're not a good defensive team. And we saw that in the playoffs. We saw that in the regular season, all of that stuff. And part of that is personnel. But we saw with someone like Bruce Brown, if you are somebody who has a discernible offensive skill, Jokic can maximize you. But right now, especially now after KCP left, we have this team full of like young guys that have like maybe some offensive upside, but they are more defensively oriented. I'd say probably like Duran is the exception, and maybe Julian too, right? Because he's definitely who's brought in for the offense, even though I think like he's basically held up defensively when we've seen him on the floor. But you can see how like you can figure out a way to be defensively oriented as a team with your personnel, but those personnel have to have something that they can do on offense, and then Jokic can figure out how to maximize that. He can't, because like Bruce could get downhill and pick and roll. Bruce could, be a transition weapon. All of that kind of stuff. Like Jokic can figure out how to play off of that, but you have to have something that you do. Right now, a lot of it is, it's not that they can't do anything. The guys that we have, especially like Peyton and Christian, are the ones I'm thinking of primarily. They're good cutters. They can be good in transition, sometimes, especially off the ball, but they're not comfortable on the ball. Whereas I think in the past, the rosters have been very, like you didn't worry about having a dearth of ball handlers before, because you had all these guards, and you had, even when you had like Jeremy Grant is somebody who could like create a bit for himself on the ball. Right. So that's kind of where my mind is at, is like, can we just get like a team full of Bruce Browns basically that are like, I think, a little more defensively oriented, but they can do something on offense, and we can weaponize that in a playoff setting, And part of that isn't just like, let's bring in new people. It's what are the specific, like, I don't want to call them leaps, but even like hops that the young guys could take so that they could get to that level, to where they have some consistent thing that they can go to.
I agree. I mean, there was something that Michael Malone said really early on in his tenure that has always rubbed me the wrong way, but it was when they had a lot of offensive-oriented players, guys like Will Barton, guys like Monte Morris, is that offense will take care of itself. And
right.
I understood that at the time. I don't think it's true anymore. I do think they need to make I think particularly from the coaching staff, there needs to be a concerted effort to being detail-oriented about how you get good offensive possessions out of these younger guys. And I'm glad you brought up some of those things, talking about their off-ball abilities a little more than their on-ball abilities, because what is the best ability of any young player in terms of offense? In my mind, it's fresh legs. It's that you can get up and down the floor faster and harder and more times than some guy who's 31, 32, 33, 34. So,
like Jeff Green? Your favorite Nugget ever?
Hey, Jeff was one of the best transition players not this past season, but the
Ray's
season
gonna get up and
before.
leave.
One of the most efficient transition
leave my
players in
own
the
show?
NBA. Actually, he and Bruce were like 1.3 points per possession in transition.
So I agree with that. He's a great dunker.
The stats.
Because I was worried about our transition offense this year. I needed to dig into it.
I want to get back to my point, but here's the thing about Jeff Green. He doesn't work hard. You know,
just get ethered on our own show.
There's a volume of work that you do. I understand why people like Jeff Green, because he does the things that pop. You know, he gets like, okay, that clutch three.
Sports Center.
He got that crazy face down block that you love to put on a highlight in his mid-30s, which is crazy. He dunks on people in a way that I hope I'm still able to in 5 years, right? There are so many times. Look, I can. Okay, so yeah, I can still dunk, but every time I do, I'm like, this might be it. Okay, come on, knees. I believe in you. Anyway, but
yeah, you had to move to Colorado to get that little bit of extra altitude in your jump.
Maybe that's what it is, but it's the small things for him and for me watching him. It's how much effort does he actually put in on rebounding, on defense, on moving without the ball when, you know, it's not just convenient. It's those kinds of things that I would like to see more from, but that's not really a realistic expectation that you can have of a guy who's in his mid-30s, so I'm not saying he's not good to have around. It's just the way that Denver used him. They used him like he was 28 and not where he was in his career. But no, but back to my what I wanted to say was how would I put this? Just move, maybe do a little bit more off-ball movement, a little more off-ball cutting, maybe some off-ball screens. Those are nice. I love a good screen. And I think those are things that guys like Peyton and Christian and Julian, even Zeke, they don't have to be good at basketball to do that well. Like, they're just things, they're simple things that you can coach and teach and emphasize, and Jokic will see them. Jokic is that flexible that he's going to be able to make those reads and maximize those players. I just think it's the simplest way of keeping that offensive floor high while still having a set of players who are defensively and athletically and physically minded. But Will, I wanna throw this to you. I don't think I'm the only person on this island. I actually think Matt Moore is on the same island as I am, which is a first maybe, but I have a favorite lineup and I want to hear what you think of it.
Oh gosh.
It is the start. It's the starters, but it doesn't involve Christian Brown. It's Peyton Watson at the 2. How do you feel about that? I know Malone has always played him at the 4 more, or if not the 3, but I'm super interested in him. A lineup with Jamal, Peyton, Aaron, Mike, Jokic. I feel like there's so much length, so much athleticism, and honestly, when you're comparing him to Christian Brown, a little bit more on-ball creation and maybe even a little bit more shooting, and he's athletic enough. Like, I don't think you're losing anything mobility-wise. So I'm curious how you would feel, or what your just take on that idea is.
I can see it, because if you're like, I mean, him and Christian are similar in ways. Obviously, they are different size-wise, and Peyton has that length, and Christian, he still is he's more like stout and strong. I'm wondering how Peyton looks, though, because I think he could be like thicker this season coming in. But I don't know if that changes his versatility with where he's going to play. But as far as playing the 2 with Jamal, I mean, if he was like not a huge volume shooter, but it's not like the 2 guard is like that for us anyway. And
ACP put up 10 points a game.
Yeah, so it's like not this super high bar. He's going to get there. He can spot up a little bit, and he's going to be hit and miss. I don't know how defenses will play him and how he's going to develop, but I like it. The starting 4 around him is so good that I could just see it working, and then him like being like the KCP workhorse on defense in that same way, where it's like he's putting in a ton of effort on the other end and not maybe being as involved in offense. So I can see it from that perspective. Was there like a specific, because Mike would still be 3, Aaron 4, Jokic 5. Yeah. Was there a specific reason why you were like excited about P-Watt at 2?
I just think it adds a level of, talking about pace, talking about like getting up and down the floor a little bit more. Maybe even, I don't want to say you can't take the ball out of Jamal's hands with Peyton, but you can get Peyton on an outlet, and he'll be up the floor in 3 seconds. And you can't press him the way you could press a less athletic player.
He does finish, well, mostly because he's just like dunking it so much more than CB, but he does finish on the rim a little bit more. But CB can do it too. It just depends. As long as Peyton's not dribbling, I mean, at this point, I haven't seen that. Not that you're advocating for that. And if he's getting good at screening and off-ball screens, then I'd be down for it. I think any of those guys playing with Jokic are going to do somewhat well, which is why I'm not as low on this offseason, just because I'm so confident in Jokic. But I do wonder, like, I do like your original point about having a more concerted effort, just because Jamal even said it versus the Wolves that they were a little too random. And random basketball is great, but you do have to be a little more organized. They all looked frustrated out there and like not really knowing where to go. Like everyone kind of had their go-to action, like KCP. You can go to a little handoff and he can do a jumper at the elbow, or Jamal Jokic pick and roll, or trying to get a lob for AG. It was just so, it was random, but it was like within everyone's wheelhouse. Yeah, and it was just, I do want a little more creativity. I wonder if Jokic feels that way too, because he's so good at reading the game. Does he feel like he's having less options out there? Because he was like forced to try and just take it to the Wolves, and you could just see that he was so tired of it. And we definitely need to come up with some new styles. And if the young guys take a leap and bring something new that excites them on offense, that would be great too, because I'm confident in them defensively. But just like Grace saying, they need something on offense. I'm open to P-Watt or CB playing at the 2, and Straw there, and just see how it goes.
That's fair. I have my own thought for this question, but Peter, I want to throw it to you first. What is something that excites you? What is a point of optimism for you about the Nuggets going into the 2024-2025 season?
I really like Julian Strawther. I think this opens up minutes for him. I just think he plays the right way, and I think he fits with Jokic and he fits with the bench because he's looking for a shot, and he's 6'7", so he can get separation, get room, and get a shot off. Or if the defense is, face guarding or lock and trailing him, he can get at the paint and get that floater off. So, it's a shame he got hurt this year, but I like the way he played. Ball didn't go in enough, but, I'm looking forward to seeing him at Summer League again. And, mostly just, I still like the fact that we have a team, like you said, you started off the show basically, like, built through the draft, continuity. We're still bringing the core 4 back. We're bringing Christian back. We're bringing Peyton back. DJ's back, even though he's not like in the rotation. He's just good for the vibes. And I know it's not official, but it's like if Westbrook comes in, that also helps with your like taking the load off Jokic, because he does a lot. Even if he's not the most efficient player, like he just takes up a lot of oxygen, and that does mean that other guys have to do less. And Ray, you've been on this corner for years. Like you hate the Jokic save us offense. I got a football analogy for you. It's like if the best player on your team is a running back and you just feed him the rock 30 times a game, like, yeah, he's going to put up good stats, but he's going to be dead tired by the end of the fourth quarter. And that's what we saw in the Timberwolves series, right? Like you need other options if they're going to stack the box and just, basically beat you up every time, which is what the Timberwolves did. So
is this a Lamar Jackson dig?
Well, he's not a running back, but
that's what that's what his label says. But fair enough. But no, I generally agree. I like some flexibility and adaptability with their offense. I think were really good. When Jokic first showed up, they had a super free-flowing style of offense, and they really couldn't figure out how to close games. I think they figured out how to close games and thought they could just play that way the whole time. I'd really like to see them kind of bridge those two ideas, that we can play most of the regular season in that free-flowing. We can blow some teams out. That will be so fun. Do you guys remember blowouts? Those were fun. Like
Nuggets games are too close now.
Even Emmanuel Moody led teams to blowouts, one way or the other.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, one way or the other.
But Grace, I'm curious about you as well as we kind of get into the deeper parts of the show. What is something that you would really appreciate, a point of optimism for you going into next season?
I similarly to Pete, I think a leap from Strother just in terms of usage would be interesting, because he is somebody who hunts his shot. I think, we talked about this whole like defensively versus offensively inclined players. Like Julian is like there for his offense, even though he holds up just fine on the other end. And he hunts his shot, right? You might have another player that maybe they're initiating that possession, like Christian Brown. He's looking to pass the ball, and it makes it a lot easier for the defense to like play the passing lanes or whatever it is. Something that really impressed me, I guess, and I don't know if it's going to carry over into his second year, was Julian had all these situations where he kind of like totally caught the defense off guard when he decided to either drive in for the floater or try to get to the rim. And so he was drawing fouls a lot more often than I thought. Like if you look at the actual free throw rate, it's not particularly high or anything, but every time it happened, I was like, why are they fouling there? It's like, oh, they don't know this kid. But he does drive in, and he's, like you said, he's 6'7", like he's big, he can draw contact, and it's because he's aggressive, right? And that's why I think a leap from like him and Peyton in particular could really help us out, because those guys are so big and more athletic than I think people realize. And if we just had another, not exactly Bruce, and maybe it'll be Westbrook that takes that role, but another player that sort of has enough athleticism and enough like confidence or aggression whenever they're hunting their own shot to like completely throw the defense or catch them off guard, that would be just helpful when it comes to playing with the starters, playing next to Jokic in particular. And I'm thinking about that more than anything, because my number one fear for next season isn't really the regular season record. Even though they're going to have some growing pains trying to figure things out with all these young guys, I'm more worried about the playoffs and having, versatile lineups that have, like Will was describing, like go-tos that everyone on the floor like knows what's happening, but then there are like multiple options for, those lineup combinations as well. Because we are no longer, in my mind, a team that I see as being like matchup proof. So we need to sort of win all of the little margins that we can right now in order to get, as far as we want to go, which is a championship, right? For Jokic agenda's sake.
A league average I don't know what the Nuggets free throw rate is specifically. Like I'm not looking at the data right now, but just how I feel, just these are feelings, not facts. But if the Nuggets got to a league average free throw rate, that would be huge. That would be a huge step up from wherever they were last season, because they just don't. They played so methodically. They went to things like the mid range and things like kind of finding tough, more finesse oriented looks so often. I just don't think they really created contact and earned those sorts of things nearly often enough. So that would be nice. And I do agree with you that Julian is, well, you and Peter really, that Julian has this really innate talent for, I don't know if it's for shooting yet. We'll see. I think he can shoot, but for repositioning himself on the floor in different spots. Noticing that his defender is paying a little less attention to him and just sliding sometimes just a few feet one way or the other changes the geometry of passes that Jokic or Vlatko maybe or whoever it might be can make. And I think that's huge for an offense. And I also feel like, I know Hunter Tyson hasn't seen the floor in the NBA yet, but I feel like he is also one of those guys, at least from what I saw in a lot of the film that he had coming in the league, is that he is smart enough to like notice those sorts of things. And more of that would be nice, more in that flexibility to then play off of that and just drive to the basket and, lean into the contact, maybe go at the rim, jump into somebody, make something happen. But before I get mine, Will, what is your optimism? Where will you find happiness in the next season?
Honestly, I'm putting a lot of stock on De'Ron Holmes, just like
being good,
allowing us to play some different styles. Like, we could run 5 out with him, do some different stuff. He could play with Jokic or not. So I think he's versatile and can do some of these different things that we're hoping to see. I want to see his defense. I want to see what he brings. Like, he has different ways to create on offense. So him playing with these different bench guys, I'd be excited about. I'd be excited about seeing him with Russell Westbrook. That would just be so weird. Nothing I would have expected to see, but I would be down for it. I'm optimistic and excited, like kind of like you were saying with these new players and these bench players, but it's going to be a weird season to evaluate. And because the roster is not complete right now, it's hard for me to like fully envision, but it seems like it's going to be Westbrook or some type of player like that. And I'm just worried because I want to finish in the top 3, but if we don't, because like the Thunder were really good like right away this season, and they went pretty far. We knew their weaknesses, and their weaknesses kind of did come to the forefront in the playoffs. I think we'll know kind of quickly whether this is going to work or not, but you have to give the young guys like reps and actually play them minutes for them to develop. And I don't feel bad for Malone, or I do feel bad for Malone right now because he's got to develop those guys and come up with these new strategies and come up with better offense. It's going to be really rough for him. I think Calvin Booth might be under more pressure than him, but I'm worried for both of those guys. So, because this is a big season. So I'm trying not to like put all the pressure on this season, but there is that. Like, I'll enjoy watching the new dudes, but it is a meaningful season.
I'm actually really glad you said that, because I think that really like dovetails into what I would like to see. I think what would make me the happiest. Have fun.
Yeah.
I feel like for so long the Nuggets they've entered their like dark, to make a movie reference, Dark Knight era. Where DC was making all these movies and all the movies were trying to be Batman, where it's like dark and gritty and like serious and like swear to me and like all these other things. And I just feel like I understand like the stakes are high, but at the same time it's basketball. It's a game. Like you can get so much more out of it, both as people and as basketball players, from like an energy standpoint, if they could remember to actually like, and maybe Malone is a part of this too, is just like, enjoy the fact that you're NBA players. Like, enjoy the fact that you're one of the best teams in the league. Enjoy the fact that like when the Charlotte Hornets show up on a Tuesday night, you could literally put them into the ground by the third quarter if you wanted to. Like
finish them.
Yeah, like enjoy.
You know who likes playing like that? Russell Westbrook.
That's what I'm saying. It could really. I mean, I am not excited for Russ hunting his own shot necessarily, but if he buys in the right way and the culture is there in the right way, that they can kind of like enter their like, I don't know, their Deadpool era, just kind of like enjoy the ride. That's all I'm saying.
That's a good point. That's why I was thinking this season was kind of a slog with the title defenses. It was mostly the same guys, and we lost Bruce. I do think there's something to there's something to like bringing in Westbrook and Holmes and having like some exciting, fun players, and But it will be tough to come into this season without that chip on their shoulder and being like, we're going to be serious now and show everyone that we're still good. Hopefully they can have some fun because that's what brought them so much success.
I mean, I
It's
think that
fun
works.
to prove people wrong.
It is.
Right?
It is for them, yeah.
and you can still do that. You can still do that.
Yeah.
When the time comes, you can lock in and be serious and be Batman and go do the thing.
Well, that's the thing is like last year, everyone was saying, oh, the Nuggets are fine. Even like when they were like slogging through the season, of like all the national media were like, I'm not falling for it. Denver Nuggets will flip the switch and all of this stuff. And like I was kind of hoping that would be the case too. Playoffs come, doesn't happen, right? But the year they won the title, nobody outside of Denver, almost nobody outside of Denver had them as the favorites. Even there were like, wasn't it like 7 out of 8 of that ESPN panel had Phoenix as the favorite to win that series? And I thought that was crazy because I watched Phoenix in round 1 versus the Clippers. I didn't even know how good the Nuggets were, but I saw them beat the Timberwolves in round 1, and I saw Phoenix struggle with the hospital Clippers in round 1, and I was like, I mean, I think the Nuggets should win this, but yeah, I think the Nuggets should win this because whatever. Like, I was like, Phoenix has no depth, all this stuff, and that turned out to be the case. And I didn't even know anything, so I thought it was crazy that all these people were like this, that, and the other. But this last year, it was like almost expected. And it was more about living up to expectations as opposed to like shattering expectations, right?
Yeah. I mean, they don't. Honestly, we already won a championship. Like, I feel like I've been a part of the greatest generation of Nuggets of all time. And, you know, that's something to remember at the end of the day. It's kind of like, so I bowl competitively. I may be bowling in the tournament sometime soon, but hey, when I bowl with normal people, it reminds me that, you know, even when I don't do as well as I want to do, that I'm still the best bowler most people know. I'm not going to lie. If you're listening to this, I'm probably the best bowler you know. But
second humble brag of the show already.
I mean,
would you make bread recently too, or something?
I am feeling myself, huh?
You talked about bowling and dunking, so now you have to dunk a bowling ball
onto some bread.
Sounds dangerous.
Yeah, it's probably bad for the floor. Yeah, we'll see what happens if I come out with like a TikTok or something. That'll be one of them. But no, that's pretty much how where I'm at, and I don't know if you guys had anything you wanted to, like, before we close out, anything you wanted to touch on as far as like maybe the Nuggets or even non-Nuggets related topics.
No, just you made the comment earlier about Malone. He'd been doing this throughout, where he's like, the offense will take care of itself and all of that stuff. We saw a massive shift in how he talked about that during this last Wolves series, when in all of these post games and in the pregame pressers, he couldn't stop talking about the fact that like he wasn't worried about our defense; it was the offense that was the problem. And I think like that was obviously true. Although we had some defensive issues matchup wise, but that is like something that maybe is an interesting challenge for the team to take on next year. Like you said, just trying to get these young, more defensively oriented players in the best, positions to succeed offensively. It's like a fun challenge for our offensive coordinator, David Adelman, who unfortunately, or fortunately for us, has not gotten a head coaching job from another team this cycle. But now he gets to take on, this new challenge with a team that is going to have a good number of fresh faces on it, right?
Yeah. And how do I put this? I feel like Malone is a guy who he's not my favorite coach of all time, but one thing I really admire about him is that he has continued to grow throughout his coaching life. I don't always agree with his decisions, or his choices or anything like that, but I feel like when he is faced with his own failures, he internalizes those things and changes. Maybe it's only a singular change. Maybe he's only adding one thing at a time, but it's the brightness and optimism that I have for him that he can be one of those coaches who's staying in the same place for 20, 30 years, is that he continues that process, that he continues to grow in that way. Because I know he can coach defense. I know he can coach effort. I know he can coach those things. But there's more to life. There's more to life than defense. I'm not to say that defense isn't important, but we can do both. You know, we can do both. That's all I'm saying.
They have really good relationships with Malone. And last thing I'll say about it, like your bowling analogy, is I think the Olympics is going to be really good for Jamal and Jokic. They get to play with not just normal people, but their own people, their countrymen, and feel that like fun sense of basketball, I hope. And hopefully, and they'll be in shape, they'll be in form. Hopefully they'll be playing. And I think it's going to be positive.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. Peter, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, Ray, I wanted to ask everybody how they feel just sort of about the state of basketball as a whole, and try to take a step back and like answer this as just a basketball fan, not specifically a Nuggets fan.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about the new apron, the cap rules, and like, you know, the last 6 years we've had 6 different champions, which I think is great. I think parity is wonderful. You know, the little guys should feel like they have a chance to win. Obviously, we have seen, you know, dynasties in places like San Antonio. You know, obviously there's a lot of draft luck that goes into that. But, you know, I like the fact that they're trying to level the playing field and that Ballmer and the Warriors can't just outspend everybody. I'm just curious, you know, Ray, what do you think about the way things are going?
You know who is not appreciating the new levels of parity in the NBA? NBA Finals viewership rates.
Yeah.
You know, I think, well, NBA Finals viewership rates are just on a downward trend the last few years. And I think a big part of it is not to say that parity is bad, but the lack of continuity in the league, I think, and overlaid with I don't want to say that super teams were good, because it's a conflicting thing. I think there's a level of balance to be had here. But when you had those sorts of like long-term rivalries, you know, we've had multiple different champions every year the last 5 years, something like that. That when it was Warriors, Cavs, when it's Lakers, Celtics, you know, going back to some of the early days of basketball, and a whole people said Lakers, Celtics saved the NBA or started the NBA, you know, in terms of, you know, going back like 50 or so years. Right. All that is to say, the narrative strength of, you know, the compelling nature of those sorts of matchups is a little bit diminished right now because of the way parity is breaking up teams and scattering talent and making it so, I think, for the casual fan, it's a little bit harder to attach themselves to any like particular narrative. Like, or did you become a Mavs fan because you liked Luka some years ago? Well, you know, he hasn't had the dynastic success that you would expect of a player of his caliber. And then the same is kind of true in a lot of different scenarios. Everybody has a star, but nobody's dominant. And so that's more fair. It's more equal, but people also like to see dominance. People also like to see teams keep their players, talking about KCP. And I think that continuity, it kind of annoys fans.
Well, hold on, Ray. You explained very well, like, why the numbers are down. But I'm asking you, did you enjoy this new parity?
I don't know yet. I'm still kind of.
Oh my God!
Look, I don't lie. Okay, I give you the honest opinions. You can try. I give you the honest opinions that I have. Look, I love Bol way longer than anyone else.
God damn it.
Yeah, so don't act like I'm not being honest when I tell you this, is that I still think the
right,
long-term
fair enough.
implications of the new CBA and how that's all going to work out is still kind of up for grabs, and I'm not sure how I feel about it.
All right.
I mean, I would rather have parity. I mean, the Cavs Warriors era where it was given that they were going to go to the finals every year made the regular season pretty insufferable. But it was awesome, those finals, though. Like, it was worth it. Yeah, it was worth it when you got there, but it sucked. Like, in the
first two were.
Yeah.
I felt like once they had Durant, it wasn't very fun.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, those were all sweet. But, well, LeBron had that 50-point game in that one, even though it was like a sweep or whatever. But that was pretty cool.
True.
But the offseason in those times were exciting because you were waiting for the next super team to pop up to like knock off the current super team. And it just never happened. Like, they just couldn't amass the talent to compete with the Warriors. So I do prefer this. I think the fans, even if they're casual fans of their own team, they can make arguments that their team is going to make a run or, feel confident in some delusional way or convince themselves, or maybe they're right. Who knows? It creates
some bias, right?
Yeah, it creates more debate and all that and unknowns, and that's fun. Maybe it doesn't attract the casuals because they don't know the big names and the big storylines. It's harder to track those. So I think you're right on that. But I'm more like concerned about like the state of the game with like officiating and some of the rules and some of the way that it's presented, just to make it more enjoyable as a product. Like, I just want the product to be good, and I want the NBA to see some things that aren't working and be willing to change that rather than like, I mean, it's cool that we have parity now and whatever, but I just wish they were a little more focused on that.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah, I would just say I'm not when you ask about the CBA and the new aprons and all of that stuff, I'm not sure yet that what is going to happen ultimately is parity, but for the sake of it, let's say that is the conclusion. The way that I feel about it as a basketball fan is like, that's awesome, because then you have all these teams that are of relatively equal potential, and then it becomes more about the actual game on the floor, right? Then going into a series knowing, oh well, this team doesn't have enough, so it doesn't, like, this doesn't even matter, kind of thing. And I think we got that to some extent in this year's playoffs. And I mean, part of it is like who's healthy, who's not. That's always going to play a role. But as for the how I feel about what it would mean for like casual fans or just like the average viewer, I think that has a lot more to do with the way that the product is sold than almost anything else. Of course, nothing is going to be able to compare to LeBron versus Steph, right? Like we were lucky enough to get to watch two like top 10 all-timers battle it out in their primes, one of LeBron's primes, depending on where you put that window in his career. And all of the legacy implications and all of that stuff. We were witnessing like the greatest shooter to ever live, like by a mile. Like, it's not close. It's still not close, right? Versus like one of the most dominant forces we have ever seen in LeBron, right? So nothing's ever going to quite stack up to that. But I do think that, especially ESPN, because like you can't talk about the NBA without talking about ESPN and like the way that the NBA is sold, because of how like interlinked those two are and the relationship that the NBA has with Disney, ESPN's parent company. But I think that they do a really poor job of trying to sell you on why things are important. Part of the problem with the regular season is it is too many games. That's just like a thing. But going into the playoffs, especially, like, there are really important narratives that are happening in like all kinds of regions of the country, like with the associated teams. And I will just say, from my perspective, I love drama. right? I like basketball. I like watching basketball a lot. I got even more into watching basketball after I became a Nuggets fan. But one of the things that drew me in, like, as deep as I got into Nuggets fandom was the controversy with the Embiid versus Jokic MVP debate, right? And like all of the nonsense surrounding that. And I think, especially watching both of those round 2 series last year, like every game just meant even more, just in terms of like casual. And this is coming from someone who at that point was like, I'm not yet like a Nuggets fan. I'm definitely not a Sixers fan. I was actually rooting for Philly at the beginning of that series because I'm anti Boston Celtics. But obviously by the end of round 2, I'm like, okay, Embiid can just do like whatever it is that they're doing over there in Philadelphia. And I'm like fully team Jokic, right? Like, people love drama, and you can find that anywhere. It doesn't have to be, Celtics, Warriors, or like, even when you look at the Warriors, like, they had a generational talent, but that team was like largely irrelevant for a really long time, like several decades before they got Steph and assembled that core, right? But you can build a story around a really good team if you're a good enough storyteller, which is why I think like what you guys do, what we do, what local media does to cover these teams more specifically matters a lot, because like national media, I think, has gotten worse, because I think they almost got like they were coddled a bit with the LeBron versus Steph, because it was so easy to sell that they didn't even have to think about it. They didn't have to dig into what are the interesting angles on this rivalry, and like where can we sell this narrative, because it would require you to like know something about the teams and the players, right? But that's generally how I feel about it, is that I'm worried more for like how it's sold from the sort of highest at the highest levels, because those are the people that have the most reach, obviously, to like the average viewer, the casual fan, however you want to say it. But I'm also encouraged by how more, I don't know, grassroots coverage, however you want to say it, of all these teams is growing and fostering interest from corners that maybe wouldn't, don't turn ESPN on first thing in the morning.
It's just crazy because, the LeBron angle here, you guys are absolutely correct. He's the face of the league still, and he made the finals so many times, and he takes up so much oxygen. And, as Nuggets fans, we were frustrated because it seemed like he was resistant to Jokic, and then he eventually gave him his flowers. But I don't know if LeBron is ever going to endorse anybody
retire
or like pass the torch, so to speak, right? Like, somebody's going to have to take this. And I feel like ESPN tried so hard to push Ant this year, and they were happy when they beat the Nuggets. But then when Luka beat him, they was like, uh-oh, what do we do now? And so I think the fact that the finals were low viewership this year is a massive failure. That, obviously Luka gets talked about some, but it's just like, I don't know. I just think, why can't people just appreciate the game? And it doesn't matter where the players are from. Why do they have to be American? Like, it bothered me so much. It was like, was it Nick Young basically saying like, oh, the Celtics won, America took it back? I'm like, who cares? Like, good basketball is all over the world. There's more foreign players than ever. The best players in the league are foreign. So I think that they need to figure out a way to like not put all their eggs in one basket, because it's really hard to build a superstar, like in terms of not just how good they are on the court, but how appealing are they, right? Like, you don't just find LeBron. So I don't know who the next face of the league is going to be, but we are all pretty like clear that Jokic doesn't really want a part of that, even though he did finally get a few more commercials last year. the thing that really bothered me where they dropped the ball is like Nuggets fans were like, "Oh, we're undercovered. Like, you guys don't talk about us." And then when they started winning, when they beat the Suns last year or 2 years ago, people were like, "Oh, well, I guess they're good, but they won't beat the Lakers." It was like nobody wanted to accept that this was happening. And then when they beat them and then beat the Heat, a bunch of people like nationally came around and were like, "Oh, this team's actually awesome." It's like, hello, where have you guys been? So yeah, that's what frustrates me about the NBA is like how they'll talk about these like young up and coming teams they like, but then as soon as they actually start winning, that's when they shit on them again.
I think it's a massive failure that I didn't know who Nikola Jokic was a year and a half ago. Because as soon as I learned, I was like, oh, I'm like all in on this team. It was just like,
Lisa Salters didn't know who he was, and she was covering the damn game.
Well, she knew who he was. She said she hadn't seen him in person. Let's not draw specifically Lisa Salters into this, but the point stands. Yeah.
I was flabbergasted when she said that. I was like,
I'll say I think about two things, particularly like tying back to the finals. I also think about like it was a blowout. Like if the finals could be a blowout, that was a blowout. I think it was the most known quantity of a finals in a long time. So I think that's a good part. And maybe last year's was as well.
I blame Kat.
I blame the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we should.
The
Eastern
JV
Conference
division
is very bad. But I also think about just rings culture in general, and tying it back to ESPN. I think that's one of the reasons I've never been really I went to college like in 2014, 13, and I didn't have cable.
Yeah.
And I know, I guess. I don't know. I turned 30 this year. I don't feel great about it. But I just stopped watching TV, and I never came back to ESPN, particularly because so much of what ESPN talks about is about who's winning, who has the most rings right now, and the idea of rings being the epitome and end all be all of everything that matters, going back all the way from Jordan to LeBron, who I think was a very convenient sort of transition for them as someone who came into the league understanding the comparison and the expectations and not just wanting to meet them, but being eager and willing to exceed them in every single way that he could, from being the perfectest person in the world to being the corniest like narrative creator and really like being simpatico with
he
that.
offered to take a pay cut this year, right?
Yeah, he did. Yes. He did offer to take a pay cut. He's a very kind man.
How gracious.
It's actually incredible when you think about it, because it is hard to be good at all those extracurricular things and be in the eye of the media while being an athlete at the level that he still is, even to this day at almost 40 years old.
Right. I give him a lot
of the Olympic
but
team.
You can't expect that from everybody else.
You're not just going to get another LeBron,
Right. Right.
What he did, I know people think he's like, oh, he's corny, and he kind of is corny, and like he is manipulative in certain ways.
And
you don't like Taco Tuesday?
But it's fine. Like that's fine. That doesn't make him a bad person.
So many people could not have done what he's done. Like as a career, as a person, the level of perfection.
After MJ too.
Right after MJ.
Yeah.
Right out of high school. High school. Who was I in high school?
One.
Like
I couldn't have done it.
All right, enough LeBron praise. This is a Nuggets podcast.
I was just thinking this is turned into like LeBron praise corner.
I don't.
Miroslav's gonna scold us.
He is a cornball, is what I'm saying. It's just difficult to. He has my respect in some ways. That's it. But ESPN does not, because they don't do any of those things. They didn't earn any of that. They just show up not knowing a whole lot about whatever your individual team is, and are interested in drawing the biggest singular narrative that they can and plugging it day after day after day, which is usually how many rings does my favorite player have.
Ray, why don't you start an introvert podcast network where Rings Culture Talk is not allowed?
I was hoping this would be it, but
Oh, okay.
we'll see. We're working on
Rings,
it. Yeah, I mean, and so talking about other players, it's acknowledging the idea that you can be great and you can be worthy of praise, even if you don't win a ring. You can be fun, you can be interesting, you can be respectable. I mean, I'm not saying you're going to be the greatest of all time, but like, hey, we can't all be the greatest of all time. There's, I don't know how many, 355 NBA players, something like that, and only
450.
Great.
Yeah.
Most of them aren't going to win a ring.
Yeah.
I don't know. This sounds like a lot of nice guys finished last talk out of you, Ray.
I guess I can try to expound on the reasons that I dislike Embiid without referencing his inability to get past the second round.
I mean, because he has all the corniness of LeBron.
Oh, yeah.
But with none of the success.
Or durability.
Yeah. So it comes off as a lot worse.
It does. So
he's just trolling.
He's a great, I think, future WWE star.
Yeah.
He and Tyrese Halliburton. I would actually not mind a Sixers Pacers series one day. I think that would just be like that has the possibility for like bad kinds of fireworks, and I would be popcorn.
Go to the Sixers.
It seems like
the Pacers have like started fights with like multiple teams this season.
I think the Knicks and Pacers are about to start a rivalry because I don't know if you guys saw, but Brunson was at the Garden the other day because they had a WrestleMania event, and Halliburton came out. Apparently, he's like a big wrestling fan, so I like that.
I do like.
Yeah. I like when they play into it a little bit. Like,
I like Knicks
this
fans.
is entertainment at the end of the day, right? Like, you don't have to lean all the way into
100%.
it. It doesn't turn into your whole career, but you could throw the fans a bone. Like, we hate each other, the fan bases, even though like there are particular people from like Lakers Nation that I don't mind, but I love hating on them too. So, throw us some like stupid glares or whatever.
There's an idea of respectful hate. You
have to know that someone's good before you're like hating them. Like, I don't care. I'm indifferent of the Wizards. Like, I don't hate them.
Right. Oh my gosh. I have to talk about this. I have to talk about this because
Wizards Corner segment.
There was this is not don't all go however many people are watching this, don't like attack the Wizards Muse Twitter account. But they had tweeted something about how the Nuggets are losing KCP, so they're down bad. And then I responded and said, like, why is it that they think they can talk about us like this? Is it really that bad? Like crying. And then Wizards Muse responded to me and said, oh, it's okay. I didn't mean it like that. Like, I wasn't trying to talk.
I don't think I have a lot of Wizards friends. I have a lot of Wizards friends, and I don't think you understand the depths of down bad the Wizards community is in and has been in for the last.
Yeah, but they were talking trash
my
about
whole life.
us and then felt the need to apologize for it.
That's what I'm saying.
What does that say about us?
But what does that say about them? But also, what does that say about us? For sure.
Yeah.
I'm totally. This is a Wizards Corner friendly podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, like I have nothing against the Wizards.
We thank the Wizards. They helped us win a ring.
Sure. They helped me become a Nuggets fan.
There you go.
Okay, that was a backhanded compliment, but I'll allow it.
I only say truths.
All
so,
right.
Anyway, I do appreciate both of you for joining us on this lovely episode of the show. I want to be respectful to our producer, Jarrett, and keep our episodes within a semi-reasonable length. But is there anything you guys would like to plug before we get out of here?
Will, you want to?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Follow us on What's in a Game podcast on YouTube or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and we are on Twitter a lot, so please follow us on Twitter if you don't, and we interact with as many people as possible. And follow Four Corners and these two dudes because they're really awesome too. And Ray will not be a ghost and come chat with you as well.
Don't make promises I can't keep.
If he's not bowling or dunking or making bread.
I love a fulfilling life, okay?
You can follow me on Twitter at erinburr27, ERINBURR27 for anybody who's just listening. Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I will respond to comments, so be nice.
They are great tweets. I appreciate them and their activity. If you tweet at me, if you actually tag me in something, I will respond.
Whoa, the floodgates are opening now.
Yeah.
Don't tempt Raven a good time.
I might go to bed. I reserve the right to go to bed.
That's fair.
I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I may have some interesting bowling related stuff in the future. Subtle hints, but we'll see. Yes. We'll see what happens. And yeah, we will see. Hopefully, Peter, maybe he finds some internet somewhere. Maybe not.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we probably won't see you guys again until after Summer League. But next Nugget, I promise everybody, Nuggets Nation, this: the next time Ray and I record, the Nuggets will have more players on the roster.
Yes,
they'll have to because of the rules.
You spit no lies right now. So thank you for listening, especially if you made it this far. Yeah, and you can follow me online at Ravon Hackshaw and Peter at Bucketsons88. Do give us a follow. We do appreciate that. And tweet at me about Nuggets things or bread or bowling or politics or anime or Pokemon or whatever you want, honestly. Bread. Yeah, I don't know. I bake all my own bread. That's
okay.
Yeah. Cool. 10 years ago, I was like, oh, this seems fun, and here I am. Then the pandemic happened, and everyone was like,
I was like, going to say, now you have all these like sourdough tourists.
I know, the posers in the community just glomming on to the culture. It's frustrating, but that's fine as long as it takes a while to actually get good anyway. So I support you baking bread as well. Share your bread recipes with me. Give me a new bread recipe. I'll give it a try. Let you know how
bread
it
corner,
is. I'll rate your bread recipe out of 5 stars. This has been What's in a Corner, and I'll see you next time. If I can end the stream, we'll see.